Town of Manchester, Connecticut, and we're happy to be here at Mike's home talking about the first home that's receiving money from the great work of Joe Courtney and John Larson down in D.C., the $2 million that Congressman Courtney was able to get for CROG, and in 2024 was able to open up the application. Here we're at Michael's home right here in Manchester to see the work that's being done, but thank those involved. You know, I've been mayor for 11 years in Manchester, and this has been one of the topics that's been, when you talk to people that of homes that have been affected by this, the severity and the pain in their face. A good friend of mine was the first home raised in Manchester, and he was fortunate enough that he paid for every penny out of his own pocket. But the inconvenience to move out of his house for a year, and then a friend of mine up in Tallinn, Connecticut, when I talk to him, he gets so angry about it. This is our lives. To many people, their home is their lives. It's their bank accounts, everything they've done. And to see this happen in our area. And I'd like to thank we have some of our local state representatives here. I think we have Representative Biggins here behind me, and Senator Rahman, but we've had local state Congressman Larson who've gone down to D.C. and try to explain to people across the country with this, because people don't get it unless they're living it. Our friend Michael here, who owns his house, he understands it. He lives it. He bought a home thinking that he's going to retire and doesn't have to deal with this, and now he had to deal with the lifting we have. But thanks to the work of our state level and our federal level here today, he's able to get this fixed, and you can see behind us. And you know, Congressman Larson and Courtney work together. Just think, the mayor of Manchester, do we have to work together? We got two regional governments here today. I left my house in Manchester. To get here, I traveled through Bolton and Vernon to get back to Manchester. That shows how close we are and how we have to work together. And I still got lost, but I got here, by the way, thanks to GPS. But it's a great opportunity to sit here and talk about what we're doing on the federal level, helping the state level to help the local citizens here east of the river especially, who've been affected by this ugly problem that affects their homes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Congressman who introduced the bill in 2022, our good neighbor next door in the next district, which is right behind us. If you go through this backyard, you're in his district, Senator Joe Courtney. Joe.
Thank you, Jay. You're welcome. To Jay's point, it was actually almost exactly 10 years ago that Channel 30 really brought this issue to light with an investigative report that for so many homeowners who thought that their problems with their foundation was just sort of a unique, isolated situation, turned out it was a systemic problem from aggregate concrete that was being poured into homes all across this region in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s from, again, a quarry that had bad aggregate containing this material, pyrrhotite, that when it's exposed to moisture basically rusts out and, you know, over time results in a catastrophic collapse of the foundation. You know, Jay described the emotional sort of challenge that this posed for so many people because, as he pointed out, their home in many instances is probably their number 1, 2, and 3 asset, and unfortunately, because of the way insurance policies are written and property casualty policies, sudden collapse is the only type of foundation damage that gets covered. In this instance, as a result of pyrrhotite, which takes place over a period of time, the Connecticut Supreme Court ruled that, again, homeowners' policies was not available to cover that loss. So it really has been a really unique public policy challenge here in the state of Connecticut. Again, I want to echo Jay's comments about the state legislature, Governor Malloy and Governor Lamont, who basically understood that the problem was not just, again, sort of a individual family or homeowner that really had to deal with it on their own, but that it actually, because of the magnitude, the impact on the housing market in north central and northeastern Connecticut would be so extreme that it really would result in a downward pressure in terms of prices and home values in a major part of the state of Connecticut. So again, you can walk through some of the initiatives. John on the Ways and Means Committee led the fight back in 2017, which basically got the IRS to recognize the damages of property casualty loss that people could write down on their tax returns every year. Unfortunately, that was a short-lived victory because the 2017 tax law eliminated property casualty loss unless there's presidential certification of national disaster, which this never could qualify for because it was a man-made condition as opposed to caused by a weather event or some type of explosion or sudden event. For about 3 years, though, people were able to write down their losses for what we're going to talk about here today, which is the sort of ancillary costs that are involved in fixing the homes. But the state stepped up and they created the CIFSIC program. We have the director here, Mike McLaris, who over the last 8 or so years has done an amazing job. I think their 1,000th home foundation was actually replaced this sometime in 2025, which is an amazing accomplishment. But the program scope extends to the foundation itself. All the other related damages that are inevitable when you come in and lift, clean, and replace a foundation, whether it's driveway repairs, step repairs, other costs that, again, are not covered by the CIFSIC program. I think we were getting enough feedback that this was really creating barriers for some homeowners who were on fixed incomes and who really did not have the cash reserves to cover that type of loss. So in 2022, as Jay said, introduced a community-funded project for $2 million to give the Capital Region Council of Governments the resources to run a program that would allow people on a means-tested basis to apply for help for these costs. And as was mentioned, Mr. Turk's home is one of the first in the queue in terms of the work that CROG has done in terms of qualifying people, identifying the costs. Again, it can reimburse up to $32,000 for the costs of repair. And again, I want to thank the folks at CROG. Matt Hart is here along with his great staff and team, Pauline Yoder, and others who put this program together. And it's my understanding that there are, again, a number of homes in other parts of this sort of radius, like Enfield and Ellington, Bolton, that are already now qualified and, again, are going to get the benefit of this program. It doesn't happen by itself. It really requires teamwork. And Congressman John Larson, who, again, the two of us are literally on the border of the 1st Congressional District and the 2nd Congressional District. We've been talking about this issue and working on this issue really over the last 10 years with other initiatives with IRS in terms of qualifying CIFSIC for nonprofit status, making sure that the payments were not taxable to homeowners once they received the CIFSIC assistance that was there. And his position on the Ways and Means Committee, which is a really small but powerful committee in terms of a lot of these issues, is so important to the state of Connecticut and to our region. So again, as I said, we worked on this issue together to get the community-funded project through the appropriations process, also assisted by Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, who is the ranking Democrat on that committee. And we're really excited to be here today to actually see the work that took place over a period of years down in Washington come to full fruition back here at home. So with that, I want to yield the floor to John Larson.
Well, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Your Honor, for your introduction. But Joe, is the great thing about working with Joe, he's so thorough. He pretty much covered all the bases, and but what he hardly ever talks about is his effort. And when you're that well respected in the United States Congress, when people recognize you because of the earnest and concerned issues that you bring to their attention, you present them in a practical, we can do this manner, that's Joe Courtney. And he is so well liked in the United States Congress that very few of these things get done. I was happy to join with him, but his bill ended up succeeding. We got our bill in 2017, but our erstwhile colleagues on the other side got rid of the tax cut. We're working to restore that again, because every homeowner and anyone that has been articulated both by the mayor and Joe, who faces this particular type problem, needs to have a remedy. It needs to be able to make sure that their homes and their foundation are protected, and they're able to enjoy the value that both the mayor and Joe mentioned that owning a home brings to them. I finally just recently finished paying off my mortgage because it was used to help finance my kids through college, and that happens with so many families under so many different circumstances. So we're honored to be here, as Joe indicated today, and see this app work, to be joined by our state legislative delegation, and Senator Rahman and Representative Biggs. Thank you, and you guys have done just an outstanding job, and we love to continue to work with you guys, as well as Matt Hart and others that have participated in this as well. So thank you for the efforts, but most of all, thank Joe Courtney for the hard work that he does day in and day out.
Thank you, Councilor Larson, and yes, thank you, Councilor Courtney, and again, as I mentioned earlier, I would have had the morning off, and so Councilor Larson, if we just went one house behind us, but we are so, this is so important that this east of the river come together, and when it comes to coming together, our Capital Region Council of Governments is led by a great man who looks out for the municipalities in his district on a regular basis. We don't have county government, we have regional participation, and that's led by Matt Hart. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor Moran, Congressman Courtney, and Congressman Larson for your leadership and your remarks. I would also like to thank Mike McGlaris, the superintendent of the Connecticut Foundation Solution Indemnity Company, or CFSIC, and my colleague Jim Rivers, the executive director of the Northeastern Connecticut Council of Governments, for the excellent partnership that we all have working together. In addition, I'd like to acknowledge Governor Lamont and our state legislators. We've got two of our local champions, Senator Rahman, Representative Biggins here behind me, for supporting CFSIC and our work over the past several years, and supporting our towns and our homeowners who've been dealing with this crisis. There are some other folks who work behind the scenes that I think are very important to acknowledge. I'd like to start by recognizing Kim Bona and Pauline Yoder, my colleagues at CROG, and Kent Lewis and Jennifer Svelnis from the Housing Development Team, who help us to administer this GAP funding program. And then furthermore, I'd like to thank our host. Mike, and his family. Mike, thank you so much for inviting us here and for putting your trust in us and this program. So as Congressman Courtney talked about, the GAP Foundation funding program, it's designed to assist low to moderate income homeowners with covering expenses that are not normally covered under the CFSIC program. So what would this include? We typically label it as things that relate to health, safety, and accessible means. And these could be things like railings, or walkways, or driveways, decks and porches that can be very expensive to replace. So the GAP funding program is proving to be very successful thus far. We've received 58 applications to date. It's only been in place for a few months now. We've issued 16 preliminary commitment letters, and then 5 of those 16 homeowners have entered into contract with an approved contractor. So that's great progress, and we want to keep it going. So before I turn the program over to my colleague, Mike McGlaris, a little bit of a call to action here. I want to, and we all want to, encourage those homeowners that suspect they have a crumbling foundation to get their foundations tested. Get it tested. Please explore what's available to you. And if you think you're eligible, take a look into this GAP Foundation testing program, this GAP Foundation funding program, as well. These programs aren't going to last indefinitely. So if you're watching today and you get this message, please get your home tested. And you can find the information about these programs on CROG's website, www.crcog.org, and starting tomorrow, www.crcog.gov. So thank you all so much for coming out today. I'll be happy to assist with any questions at the end. And now things turn back over to Mayor Moran. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Matt. I always say there's people that make it happen, our congressmen, our state local. But you have to have people to get it done. And Mike McGlaris and his work as working with on the front line with homeowners, helping them know where to start. What's the first thing I ask? What are the steps I take? Hopefully get some support. And Michael and his company are doing a great job helping those homeowners right here in Connecticut. Michael?
Well, it sounds like a construction site to me. So, good morning, everybody. I'm Mike McGlaris. I'm the superintendent of Connecticut Foundation Solutions Indemnity Company. That's a mouthful, which is why we call it CFSIC, CFSIC for short. As of this morning at 9:04 a.m., CFSIC has replaced 1,129 foundations in their entirety. That's 1,129 families throughout the affected area that have been helped. 1,129 families where the equity has been restored to their homes, where they're able to purchase or renew homeowners insurance coverage many times for the first time in years. And that's 1,129 times where the captive insurance company has demonstrated its value because each of those homes has gone back onto the tax rolls at its correct value, and that's important. But today we celebrate a very important victory, a victory for a man named Mike Turek and for all of his neighbors that you see their units behind me. This is Lytle Woods. This is an area where CFSIC has pumped $14.5 million of construction value in the past 4 years alone. I visit Lytle Woods one day a week just to see what the progress is like, and I'm amazed how quickly it's happening, and I'm amazed how grateful the citizens are to have this benefit. We want to give a shout out, real thanks to the untiring efforts of Congressman Joe Courtney. Federal assistance is now available for eligible homeowners facing the Crumbling Foundation's crisis to help them meet some of the expenses that CFSIC can't pay for. This program, funded by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development and managed in a collaborative and able way by Matt Hart and Pauline Yoder and the whole team at CROG, is a godsend to people who need the assistance to go just a few more yards over the goal line to get this project done. We are going to defeat this Crumbling Foundation's crisis, and it will take a village to do it, and we're well on our pathway because of the wonderful program that Joe Courtney has advocated for us. Lytle Woods is a planned unit development. These units that you see behind me sit on top of a shared foundation platform. And unlike a condominium, where the condo association owns the foundation, Mike Turek and his family and each of these unit owners own the foundation directly underneath them. Why is this important? Because what it meant was that people like Mike Turek and his neighbors actually got together and collaborated. in the best neighborly fashion. They sought construction proposals. They vetted those proposals. They asked tough questions. They visited their neighbors whose work was being done throughout the affected area. It is the ultimate example of neighbor helping neighbor, which is what CIFSIC is all about. Soon, this project will be over. It's about 40% done this morning. And everyone who shares this foundation platform will be back in a safe and secure home and with a safe and secure future. It's time for some shout-outs to the HUD program and to CROG. Let's hear it now, which have helped make this possible. To the incredible efforts of Joe Courtney and people like him who have made the federal program available. To the taxpayers of the state of Connecticut, many of whom do not live in a town where they will ever see a crumbling foundation. And they have supported these efforts as well. And finally to Mike Turek and his neighbors who have worked collaboratively to rebuild their dreams. Let's all agree that there's much to celebrate today, and there'll be much more to celebrate in the future. This is the first example of interventional funding by the United States government in the Crumbling Foundation's natural disaster. We can all see a brighter future because of it. A future with this crisis defeated. And defeat it we shall. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And usually you'd say something at this point in the program where it's very hard to follow all these folks because they're very talented and smart, hardworking representatives and technicians. However, it's easy because I don't have to say as much. So I'm glad to be last in a way, but I'm very honored to be here with all of them. And this is usually where I also say I'm glad to know and have as a friend and representative the hardest working and my favorite Congressman, Joe Courtney. However, I have a problem because I have another congressman here.
This is mine.
And I'll
Now
tell
you
you.
got a real problem.
Well, I got
I remind you we're still in Manchester.
No, I'm in a strange place.
It's been great working.
Well, they can't even tune you in over in almost Rhode Island where I come from. So, but actually it's easier on that one too because I have the two hardest working congressmen, two favorite congressmen that I know, and I'm so glad to be here with all of them. You know, I took a geology course for about 40 years ago as an elective, thinking that'd be nice to take a geology course. I did terrible in it because you have to memorize a lot of things. You got to be very smart to get through that. But I learned a few things, but not enough apparently, because this is a very technical problem. And to see this, and I learned more today. I knew a little bit before I got here, of course, but I learned a lot just listening to the speakers, and it's quite a challenge. I'd sit there with my wife over the last 10 years and see the stories come up and hear different things in government that I serve, and we're just sitting there like, I'm glad this didn't happen to us, but I'm glad to support it as a citizen that lives in Connecticut. And I think I couldn't be prouder to be someone that lives in Connecticut today, looking at all of you that are here, looking at all the gentlemen behind me and everybody that's worked so hard. Matt Hart, his organization, the little organization almost in Rhode Island, like I said, he's really taken the lead in his staff, and I really appreciate what you all have done because we have a few towns in my region that are also affected by this, and many of my communities are, I'll say, smaller and poorer, and they don't have resources like the capital region has, and to have them the teamwork between us, the partnership is critical for my region. So I want to thank Matt and everything you've done because it's been it's quite a dramatic 10 years here, and there's more work to do, as everyone has said. If you have not done so already, you should really engage the program before it's too late. You need the help, get the help, it's there. And again, I want to thank especially Congressman Courtney for having me with you here today, but thanking everybody else. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Could you just give me a round of applause on behalf of Mr. Turek and all those in this neighborhood and the neighborhoods of Manchester and outside of Manchester, east of the river, who have been benefited by the hard work of all these individuals behind me. Let's give a round of applause for them.